Hello everyone, in this video we are going to go over Pytest. So to get started we have to first install Pytest package. I have already installed, so I don't require to reinstall it again. If you don't have installed it, you can go ahead and install it with pip. So to get started, Pytest have few requirements. So Pytest searches for in the current project directory file starting with test underscore prefix. So if the file is prefix, if the file is created with test underscore, then the Pytest will pick all the test cases that are within that file and run those test cases. And there is also one requirement that the test cases inside that test file also have also the name of that test cases to be prefixed with test underscore. So one of the uh, followed guidelines in Pytest is to create a test directory. You can just put the test cases in any directory if you want, but for the case we are going to create, we have already created a test directory and written some few test cases that we will go over. So we are following the standard and created a test directory which will contain all the test cases related to our application or service. So inside the test directory, as you can see, we have to prefix the file name with test underscore as previously mentioned, and then we can name whatever we want. That will be picked up by the Pytest and run. So let's go ahead and open the test add file. So here you can see I have already defined a function that we are going to go ahead and run the test cases on and write test cases upon it. So you can see I have written three test cases. So as of now, we are just we are adding and just remove and just returning the sum of those numbers. So we based on that, I have written three test cases. And since I'm not validating or handling the test case when the input is something else other than number, which is the requirement for function, which is requirement for add function, it should throw the error or uh, it should generate incorrect result. So for that I have written test cases and validating all the test cases. So as I mentioned that inside the test file we also have to prefix all the test cases which needs to be done with test underscore. So here we have written three test cases, three functions which have test underscore prefix and then the name of the function that you want to run. So I have given some meaningful name, so make the difference and understand what we are doing here. So here just we are adding numbers, then adding alphabet and number, then adding a alphabet number and a dictionary. So you can see to write tests we have to use the assert keyword, which will test and throw error based on the condition, which requires the condition to be passed. Based on the condition, if the condition is false, it will throw an error. If the condition is true, then it will not throw an error and the test cases will be passed or the test case will be passed. So we have to use assert keyword to test the condition based on which our test cases are passed or not. So in the first test condition, we are adding two numbers and checking if its return value is as expected that we want. Like for example, 2. In the next two cases, we are just concatenating an alphabet with number and dictionary different time except for numbers or with numbers, and then we want the result to be none. As of now, the result won't be none because we aren't handling the case when if the user have passed something else other than number. So we will go ahead and update a function to handle the case accordingly. So let's go ahead and run the test cases. So since my test directory contains multiple files which contain multiple test cases, so I'm going to just go ahead and run a specific file. To run a specific file, we just have to provide the file path. Uh, we can provide relative path or we can provide absolute path. So I'm going to just go ahead and provide relative path because that's easy. So let's go ahead and run that. So as we can see, our test cases is failing And we can see, if we want to see how many test cases has been passed and how many test cases has been failed, we can check here, or we can check add below, where it shows how many have been failed and how many have been passed. So as we can see, two test cases has been failed and one the test cases has been passed. The one that has been passed is this one. So and we can also see the information which provide all the information that where the test cases is failing. So here we can see that we have an error that string cannot be concatenated with integer, and the test case is also failing because the result doesn't match. And the other one is also that we are adding dictionary with integer, since there are no functions which can concat two different types available inside. So that's why it is throwing us an error of type error. So let's go ahead and fix the issue. So to fix the issue, we just have to make sure that the that x and y that is being passed to the add function should be integer type. If not, then we want to just return the result to be none, that nothing is calculatable, or we can just throw error. For our case, we are just returning none. So to check if the type is of integer, we can go ahead and use instance of method is instance method, where we can provide the value which we are checking and the type which we want to check, and make sure if and we can then, since we want to return none in the case when x and y, if any of them is not integer, so we can write the condition as follows. So we have written the test cases. So if x or y, if any of them is not integer, then we are going to return none, which is that which will help us to get the test cleared. So let's go ahead and test it out. We can go ahead and run the test cases. So we can see all of our test cases has been passed, since it is fulfilling the requirement and the condition are being passed, and it is returning none in the case when we have different data type except for integer. So this is how you write test cases for simple test cases. It is not mandatory that that add function should be present in the test case file. We can just import the file and test it here also, as we do with modules or and packages. So let's go ahead and go over one of the feature that is available to us in Pytest. The feature is called fixture. What the fixture allow us to do is pass, if create a function that can be passed to function while it is running, and run some logic based on the scope. So the scope defines how many times, or you can say when the function should be called, or when the function should be called and the result should be written. So when we define a function, the according to the scope, the function is being passed and the generated result is being written. So here you can see we are defining multiple functions, and based on the scope, there are different scope. So we have session scope. Session is when it will be run once according to the session that has been created. Then we have class scope, module scope, and package scope. So as the name suggests, it will be called according to the scope that is being defined. And here in this test cases, we are using the session fixation just we have defined above. So it allows us to pass, if you the fixture can be used to pass data, or it can be used to reusable functionality that we want to reuse across our reuse our, use across our test cases. So we can write those fixture and reuse in our functionality. So let's go ahead and run the test case for fixture. So as you can see, we just have a single test case with the test under prefix, so that's why we only got one test case run, and that is being passed. And we can, and there is one more thing that I want to point out. We have written various print, but we don't see any output. The reason is, by default Pytest capture all the output and doesn't let it go or print it to the standard output. To disable that, we can use a flag, which let us to the flag is tag v, which is for verbose, which let us to get the output and disable the capturing that is being done by Pytest by default. So when we run that, sorry, the flag is dash s. So as you can see, we are getting none since session doesn't return anything. It just session doesn't return anything when we are getting the session. It is just returning none since the return of session is nothing. So if I change it to return 1 and rerun the test again, it seemed there was some issue with Pytest caching. So the output, as you can see, the output is not correct. I haven't changed anything. Just the return statement is 1. Due to some caching issue, it may be missing. So let's go ahead and all delete all the caching that has been generated, so that we get the correct output. So I have just cleared the cache, and after clearing the cache, we can see the return is 1, has we written with 1. And since we just passed a session which is being called, so we are seeing here session that is being print. If I go ahead and remove the s tag, then we won't be seeing session or 1 that we are printing in our test file.